Hello, this is Sara with Posh Pooch Designs, and today's video I'm going to show you how to make polymer clay buttons. I use these great big buttons. There's a dog bone I made. Here's a butterfly, a tulip, and actually I have a lot of buttons that I have made. And I make these out of polymer clay. My favorite polymer clay is the Sculpey. Sometimes I forget and call it Sculpty, but it's Sculpey. You can get it at Hobby Lobby or Walmart or Michael's. This one I think was $1.99. And since it's Valentine's Day, I'm going to be making some hearts today. And we're going to be using red and white and a nice pretty pink that I have. And we're going to mix them together. So you'll need 3 colors if you want to make the way that I'm doing. But you can use any colors, of course. And Sculpey comes in lots of wonderful colors and shades. Even has glitters and sparkles in them. So you're going to need some clay. The next thing you're going to need is some of these. And what these are small little, here's a mustache, cookie cutters. I have this big bag of them. I've collected them through the years. And we're going to be using a heart today. Here's my little red heart we're going to be using to make heart buttons. Now, you don't have to have all thousands of shapes like I do. I've collected them through the years. So what you can do is you can go to Hobby Lobby, and down their cookie aisle, they have little to great big ones. And then they also have, I think they're made by Wilton, where you can get little sets of small cookie cutters also. But that's what we're going to be using today, are these tiny little cookie cutters. So you're going to need clay, you're going to need cookie cutters. Next thing you're going to need is a rolling pin. And this is one I got right on the Sculpey aisle. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a jar or you can use a glass, as long as it's smooth, because we're just rolling out a small amount of clay. So if you don't have one of these, you can use a jar of honey. The other thing you're going to need is something to poke the holes in your buttons. And this is one that I got, like I said, on the clay aisle at Hobby Lobby. But if you don't have this, you can take a plastic fork. And this one's for smaller buttons, so I popped the edges off. And this one is for bigger buttons, so I took the center one and the end one off. And then my buttonholes are placed nice and evenly. If you don't have any plastic silverware around, you can use a toothpick, you can use a knitting needle, anything that you have to make a nice round hole. So you need clay, you need cookie cutters, you need something to roll it out with, and something to make the holes. And the last thing that you need is some parchment paper. And this is just so that you can put it in the bottom of your baking pan so that the clay residue doesn't get on your baking pan, which comes to the next thing. If you look behind me here, I have my regular oven and I have a toaster oven. I'm going to be using my toaster oven today because I'm just making a few buttons. But you can do this in your regular oven as well. And that's what you need. Grab you some Sculpey. Maybe you can use some colors that you have left over from your other projects. And we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing you need to do is set your oven to 275 degrees. And that's whether you're using your toaster oven or you're using your great big oven. Both of them need to be set to 275 degrees. So the first thing that you need to do is cut off a piece of parchment paper and place it in your cookie sheet that you're going to be using, whether it's a large cookie sheet for the big oven or a small cookie sheet or pan for the small oven. It's very important to put that parchment paper in there so we don't get any of the clay residue underneath onto the pan. The next thing that you need to do is cover your work surface with either a piece of parchment paper or a piece of wax paper. And again, that's so we don't get the residue on the counter underneath the paper. So the next thing that you need to do is choose your clay. And I'm going to be using this bright pink, this bright red, and some white. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our clay. Oh, and before you start, make sure you've washed your hands with mild soap. You've rinsed really well and dried your hands really well, because you don't want any dirt or residue that's left on your hands of your own oils to get into the clay. Next, we're going to grab our clays and begin kneading them until they're nice and soft, like this white one is. Nice and soft. So I'm going to grab the pink one, and I'm going to start kneading the pink one until it's nice and soft. Just pushing it around, squeezing it, letting the warmth of your hands make it nice and soft and pliable. Now I'm going to grab my red one, do the same thing, and you can push it with the palms of your hands to start. This red one's a little bit harder. There we go, nice and soft. And knead those clays, I would say about 2 or 3 minutes at least for each color. So now we need to knead these together, and what you need to do is begin first by rolling them into what's called canes. And they're just, I call them snakes. You just roll them into a nice long snake or cane. They don't have to be perfectly even. I'm going to put the white one in between, and I've got a bigger ball of white here, so I'm going to tear it in half. Roll it out, and I'll save that white piece for another project. I have noticed the red's bleeding just a little bit on the white, so I didn't know that was going to happen, but that's okay. It's still very pretty. So I'm putting them all together, squish them up, and then I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to twist it a little bit. Looks like candy cane. Put it together, twist it some more, and then knead it some more. Now, we don't want the colors to mix in. We want them just to kind of blend in a swirl. Kind of looks like red and pink camouflage. There we go. There's my ball. So now I'm going to take my rolling pin and I'm going to roll out the dough. Now, if you're using a jar or something else, that's totally fine. Anything that you can use to roll it out and get it flat. And I just turn it over and begin rolling it. And I really like how these colors are going together. See, the back side, I've got a lot of red over here, so I'm probably going to use the other side as my main side. Now, the thickness of the button needs to be probably less than 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to say maybe 1/12. It's just totally up to you. But remember, if your button is thicker, it's going to take longer to bake. Okay. So now I've got my dough rolled out. I like the way it's looking. And you're going to do this just like you do when you're making cookies. You're going to take your cookie cutter. I put that one right in the middle because it's going to be nice and pink. Take our pan and put our cookie down. Now, that side's pink. This side has colors. I'm going to go with that side. All right. So let's do some more, and then I'm going to show you how to make the holes. You'll love it. It's really easy. I ended up getting 12 buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 out of that little bit of dough. After you make your few, you do just like you do when you're making cookies. You roll it back in and you spread it back out. One thing you'll notice that how the colors are farther apart on the top ones, it got closer on the bottom ones, and I love them all, but it just gives you a different look. The more you, and this is all I have left, is this one tiny little ball. So that made a lot of buttons. All right, so now we need to make some buttonholes. What I do, like I said, I took my fork and I have two of them, one of them with the tines that are close and one that are apart. And this helps me mark where I'm going to make my buttonholes. So I go in and I look at my button and I just sort of make holes. Just go straight down and then I push up with my finger. And this marks where I'm going to put those buttonholes. They're too small to be a buttonhole, but that's marking the spot. And then I take this particular tool. Now you can use a toothpick. Let me grab one so I can show you. I'll set that there for now. And I just sort of hold the button and I go straight in that hole I put and just make a little mark. And I try to make it nice and round. Now you can use a toothpick. Go in that hole that you marked. Takes a little more work to make it a little rounder. And it depends on what you're going to do with these. If you're going to put it on something that you're going to use yarn with, you want to make sure the hole's a little bit bigger. If you're going to use thread, you want to go with something a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and make some nice size buttonholes because I'm going to use these on some yarn projects that I'm going to make for my friends. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off the buttonholes and then I'll show you how to bake it. So I put my buttons in my toaster oven, slide those in, and I've set my oven to 275. Now I'm going to set the timer on my big oven for 15 minutes. So we need to bake our buttons at 275 for 15 minutes. Set your timer for 15 minutes. We'll be baking our buttons for 15 minutes in the oven at 275 degrees. They're almost ready. They're ready. Let's check our buttons. The buttons have finished baking and they're very, very hot. So we're going to let those set aside. And I'm going to talk to you about how to make them sparkle. So let me set this down over here so they can cool. Now I do suggest that you let your buttons cool for about 24 hours before you glaze them. And that gives them time to cure. So what do I mean by glaze? If you look at these buttons here that I made previously, this one has a clear gloss on it, where this one is sparkly. And how I do this, here's one that has gloss, Broncos colors. And how I do this is really, really simple. I use nail polish. I buy nail polish like this that has glitter in it. And then I also buy nail polish like this that's clear. And then after they've cured for 24 hours, I just put the nail polish on them and let them set. Before I do that, I do go ahead and I take a toothpick and make sure that the hole is nice and big, or if there's any pieces in there that look jumbly, I'll just try to fix that up a little bit. But I paint my buttons with nail polish. It makes them glossy and clear. It makes them sparkle. And you can use any kind of sparkle and any kind of clear that you want. I really like this one for the sparkle because the pieces are really small. And I like the Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails for just the clear glaze. And that's how you make our buttons. So here are our heart buttons. I put glitter polish on the top 6 and I used the clear gloss on the bottom 6. Aren't they beautiful? Now just as soon as that nail polish dry, I have a project I'm going to use these for. Next week's video, I'm going to show you how to make a mold for a button that you like, but maybe you can't find. In other words, I have a button and I made a mold, and now I can make more buttons that look similar using a mold that I made out of polymer clay. So if you have a favorite button and you want to make some similar, or maybe you just like the texture, I'm going to show you how to do that on next week's video.